Savannah Joy is a founder of Embrace Your Wild, and she's a voice medicine channel, somatic healing practitioner, ceremonialist, and retreat facilitator. Through ceremony, community, somatics, and sound, she empowers visionary leaders to embody their fullest authentic expression, share their medicine with the world, and embrace all parts of themselves as wise, worthy, and whole. So, welcome, Savannah.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me.
So, today we're going to talk about dancing with the edge of expansion. And then I love that, like, as a big picture concept, and the visualization of dance. Dance is one of my personal medicines. So let's just real quick give an overview of what we're talking about dancing with the edge of expansion.
Yeah, I feel like this concept, this topic, and as we're using it as a metaphor today, is really like for us as leaders, entrepreneurs, business owners. We're always on this path of expansion and stepping into growth and pushing our edges and becoming the most expressed and expansive versions of ourselves. And it's like we can't help it, right? We're always pushing that edge. We're always wanting more and to be more aligned and all these beautiful goals and aspirations. And this dance is really talking about what comes up as we step into these edges of expansion, right? Like there's, excuse me, it's not all rainbows and butterflies, as we know, right? There's a lot of death and grieving and shadow work that comes along as we step into these new levels. And so, as I personally do a lot of work with the body and somatics and shadow work, I wanted to bring some processes and perspectives that could hopefully support these beautiful leaders in more gracefully navigating these edges when we approach them, because it a lot of people don't talk about how hard it is as we step
Yeah.
into these we step into these edges of new, of the unknown.
We're not
So
even supposed to say hard. Well, it's not hard. It's a growth point.
it's an
It's not hard. It's
opportunity.
just challenging. Yeah, right. Yeah. It's an opportunity. Yeah. But, real talk, sometimes it's just fucking hard, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yes.
So for those that don't know, and it seems kind of like the latest phrase that people say, tell folks what somatic healing really is.
Yeah. So, somatic really refers to the body, right? Soma is the body. And we have so much wisdom and intelligence, from the neck down. Our
Mhm.
society and most of us have grown up with putting value and emphasis on the mind, the neck up. And
Mhm.
that's what we're valued for, right? Our logic, our reasoning, our mental mindset processing. But really, the work that I do is bringing the body, the soma, back into the puzzle, right?
Mhm.
And so, somatics and somatic healing is really using the sensations of the body as guidance into the areas that need attention, right? Like just like when we start to feel emotional and our throat starts to constrict and we feel the tears welling in the backs of our eyes, that's a portal into information and wisdom and healing that the body is bringing up for us to feel. And it's
Mm.
not something to be suppressed. It's not something to be frustrated about. It's like, oh, great,
Mhm.
there's something here. My body's telling me something that needs
Mhm.
attention. And so
Yeah.
somatic healing is going into those sensations and going deeper and deeper into those layers of what's presenting in the body.
I former body worker, so I did massage over 20 years, and so I get a lot of that, and many many times I've seen people, we just get uncomfortable being uncomfortable, and so like let me take a pill for that, or let me or wait, what's wrong with me that I'm having this experience? I have a dear friend that does that, and I'm kind of low key calling her out right now. But every time she gets sick, she's like, "What's wrong with me?" And I'm like, "You're just sick. Like it's okay." So I love that there's like this sense of embracing, okay, what is this and how can I learn from this? What is there to learn from this? Yeah, because I believe that the body gives us lessons all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've been taught to just override or suppress or
Mhm.
ignore or look at it as a nuisance or whatever it is. But really, like our body wants us to win. Our body wants us to succeed and to feel good. And
Mhm.
those areas of discomfort or emotions or dense energy is really your body shining a flashlight on an area that needs your love and attention so that you can experience more ease and more pleasure and more alignment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's real easy, when I say easy, to fall into like a victimhood with our body when it doesn't do exactly what we want it to when we want it to, you know?
Yep,
And
been there.
and yeah, and then like, you know, okay, well, how can we come into forgiveness with our body? How can we come into acceptance with our body? And then, you know, listen to the wisdom and discern what it's trying to tell us, so there's like,
Yes.
yeah, multiple layers to that. So that's good stuff.
Yes,
Yeah.
love that.
So, so when we're going through these growth points, these challenges and opportunities, or really just hard times on these edges, um, I know for myself, like sometimes it's, these patterns that kind of like hold us back from getting through that little next level. So if there's a repeating pattern and it doesn't seem to change, like what can we do? How can we break through that?
Yeah, I think this is the process that we navigate over and over and over and over again when we're striving to break through, whether it's making more money or, calling in a more aligned, soulmate partner or just experiencing more joy or more pleasure or more ease in our lives. Like every
Yeah.
time we want to expand into that next level, we're faced with what parts of us need to die in order to create
Mhm.
space to step into embodying that person, that version of you that can hold more love, more joy, more money, more abundance. And so often we think in our minds like, well, I want that. I want more money. I want a more aligned partner. I want that. And I'm going to go get it. And then we self sabotage or
Yeah.
we self abandon. And then we pull ourselves back to the comfortable known of what we've been operating in. And then we get really frustrated with ourselves and we're just like, but why? Like, I want that and I want to work towards it. But then I keep falling back into these old patterns and we get super frustrated with ourselves and we shame ourselves and we go into this little shame spiral. And the
Mhm.
work that I have found is really, really powerful, and I feel like a missing piece in a lot of therapy and coaching and mindset work is this shadow work. One of my absolute favorite books is called Existential Kink, and it is like a game changer, like Bible. Like you have to get it if you haven't. Like even if you've done shadow work, like this is such a powerful book, and I love it. And this process of shadow work, especially through this lens of the existential kink, is like, what is the part of you that actually gets off, like actually finds pleasure, like the subconscious part of you. It's not our conscious mind, because our conscious mind says,
Mhm.
I hate not having enough money. I hate being in this partnership where I'm fighting all the time, or I hate this, I hate that. That's your conscious mind. In the subconscious, there is a part of you that actually likes or gets pleasure or gets off on
Yeah.
the intensity
Yeah.
or the build up or the unknown or the attention or the feeling of being the victim or being rescued. Like there is a part of you that is getting something valuable out of this current way that you're operating. And so the shadow work is really acknowledging that part of you. I'm just going to give a tangible example. I was in a relationship that was not serving me, and it was a roller coaster, like high highs, low lows, fighting at least once a week, like a big fight, like once a week. And my conscious mind said, I hate this. Like, I just want peace. I just want it to be easy. Like, why can't it just be good all the time? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and and it was something I battled for a long time. And eventually, through this shadow work process, I found the part of me that actually enjoyed the intensity of the fighting, because I had still this unresolved resentment towards the masculine, right? From my
Mm-hmm.
deep childhood wounds of abandonment from my father, I was holding this resentment and this judgment towards the masculine. And every time I got in a fight with my partner, I got to feel justified in being
Yeah.
angry and judgmental and pissed off. And it felt so good, right? Even though the
Mm-hmm.
conscious part of
Yeah.
me said, I hate fighting, I don't want to fight. But deep down, there was a part of me that was like, yeah, ugh, like,
Right.
and,
Take
and
that.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, learning to embrace that part of me or that part of you that actually is getting something from staying in that cycle or that pattern,
Mhm.
and loving them and celebrating that part of you, and just being like, wow, like, that is creative. Like, that is a creative way to get your needs met. That is like, you're a genius, and like really embracing them and loving them. And this beautiful reintegration process of these parts that we've shamed or we've suppressed, and we bring them into the light, and we get to love them and celebrate them and say, like, yep, that's a part of me. That's a part of me, and I'm going to own that.
Yeah. It's interesting. Uh, this brings to mind two thoughts. First, I was in this personal development program for a while, and then the facilitator was talking about one of his shadow aspects, but he combined all of them into one person, and that person lived in the basement. And sometimes the person would make a ruckus, so he would just give him Cheetos in his mind. He would just placate him with Cheetos. But for me, what's been coming up is this idea of like the big conference table, the big round table, and they're all sitting there because they're all informing things at all times. And so anyway, that's the one thought. And the second thought is actually seeing some of this in recent TV shows and movies where someone's got a couple different versions of themselves talking to them, the shadow aspects. It's been really interesting seeing that evolution in the media and the representation of that. Um, how could you, for people that really want to dive into understanding their shadow, and maybe they don't know all these things about themselves, that they want to get informed about what's in that subconscious, what would you recommend? I know you said the book Existential Kink. And what other recommendations do you have for them?
Yeah, so again, I feel like the gateway portal is the sensations in the body. So when we start to look at this shadow work, the first gateway access point is through the body, right? And so I'm just going to keep using that example that I used earlier.
Yeah.
So when I would get into that place of getting in a fight with my partner and feeling that intensity and feeling that resentment and judgment and anger and all of that stuff and that victimhood, I would the first place I would look is, what, like, without judgment and without a story, what does that make me feel? Right?
Hmm.
I feel this, like, burning in my gut, like this, like, fiery tension, like burning sensation, like, in my gut. Okay, so we're going to tune into that. What are the sensations and the energy and the feelings that are present when that's happening?
Hmm.
And as we go into that, it's like, okay, so what is that giving me? Like, what am I getting? What am I benefiting from feeling that, right? And so instead of focusing on, like, oh, I'm pissed off, it's like, oh, I feel this intensity of energy in my body, and there's a part of me that actually likes that intensity,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
so, and the next step as we do this, after we realize and acknowledge the part of you that likes that feeling, that sensation, when it comes up, like, then it's looking at how can I get that feeling in a more healthy, empowered way, right? Like,
Mm.
so that so that for me, like that intensity and that like that fire, like that could come from me pushing my edges of like doing a cliff jump or going skydiving or finding some other way to get that experience that I'm wanting, that intensity, in a
Yeah.
more healthy and empowered way, so that when the urge comes up to fight or to fall into that old pattern, you then have a conscious choice, like, oh, I see you. Like, I see you, that part of me that's showing up, and you get to choose. And that's how we start to shift the pattern, is having the conscious choice.
So really, really tracking when we're feeling a strong emotion. Okay, where am I experiencing this in my body? What am I getting from it? And then how else could I get that from something healthy? Like if I want a fire in my belly, maybe I'll order some Thai hot Thai food.
There you
You
go.
know,
Yeah.
like I'm not jumping out of airplanes, Savannah, but
Yeah.
I will
Or,
eat a level
or
5 Thai food for that little adrenaline rush.
yeah, or putting on some rage music and getting your boxing gloves
Right.
and hitting a punching bag. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, which is actually something that I did as I was working through this repeating pattern that I couldn't break.
Mm.
I had this intuition of like, God, I just really want to hit stuff, which is not typical for me. Like, I'm a very peaceful, loving, grounded
Yeah.
person. But when I was working through this really deeply ingrained pattern, I had this intuition of like, God, I just really want to punch stuff. And I found a punching bag on OfferUp and I put it in my garage and I created this playlist of like sacred rage music. And I went and I processed so much just deep, buried, pent up stuff. And it
Yeah.
was through this process that I was able to really acknowledge this part of me that was just really trying to protect me at the end of the day, that didn't want me to be taken advantage of or abandoned or hurt. And when I was able to shift that and I was able to see like how beautiful it was that that part of me wanted to protect me, and I found this other outlet of expressing the intensity and the energy, is when all of this stuff started to shift, and like eventually I
Mm.
was able to leave the relationship and really like heal those parts of me that were holding resentment towards the masculine.
I feel like everybody, I don't feel like, I believe, I like to be clear about that. I believe everybody could benefit from a Sacred Rage playlist. You might need to share that with me.
I can definitely share it.
Yeah, like when we are quieter in our head and we listen, I think our body's always giving us these clues. It was telling you your medicine in that moment, and mine, has been telling me, like it shows me, through my second sight, what I need to do to be preventative and take care of my body. I don't always listen to it, but I can see it coming, like for 2 years, I kept on having a vision of myself doing squats, and I'm like, whatever, and whatever. And then my back went out really, like, in a bad way. For months, I struggled with it, and I went to physical therapy, and guess what I did? A crap ton of squats.
You
So
knew.
maybe I could have been preventative and listened.
Yeah, so
Not beating
powerful.
myself up. It was overall a good experience, in retrospect. But I learned some lessons. I learned to like preemptively pay attention to those little messages.
So powerful. Yeah, so
Yeah.
powerful. Thanks for sharing that.
So you mentioned the shame that comes up because no one wants to have these, no one wants to have self-limitations. No one wants to have these areas of challenges. We don't necessarily want to admit those boogeymen in the closet, right? Um, so when the shame comes up, what can we do to address that? What's effective?
Yeah, this is so huge. Like, this core of all of the work that I do. Like, this is the underlying core of everything that we do. as we're bringing up and addressing these parts of us, these shadow parts that, like, honestly, at first glance look really ugly. They are not the parts that we want anyone to know about us. We don't even want to look at it ourselves, right? It can be really confronting to acknowledge and admit that that's a part of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this part of me that was super resentful of the masculine, like I named her the Punisher because she was like this like dominatrix, like she wanted my partner to suffer, like,
Mm.
and embracing her like at first was really hard for me. Like I didn't want to admit that that was a part of me because I'm so loving and I'm non-judgmental and I'm all these things, but there's this
Mm-hmm.
really dark twisted part of me, and that took me a while to embrace that. And so when that comes up, it truly is this like radical self-acceptance and compassion for that part, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it it is, it's like so often I just have my clients, put your hand on your heart and your hand on your gut, and like really breathe into that acceptance of who you are, because we are all of these parts. We all have, an imposter, a liar, a manipulator, a cheater, like all these things that we want to say, like, I am not that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's a
Yeah.
small part of you that is, right? Or has
Yeah.
been. And that you have the capacity to be that, right? We are all of it. And we are also powerful and magnificent and all of these things. And a lot of times we can't be with that either. And there's shame
Mm-hmm.
around being too much, too bright, too, too powerful.
Yeah. Who am
And
I? Right.
who am
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
to take up space? Who am I?
Mm-hmm.
And so this radical self-acceptance of like really coming to the heart and the body, and saying like, I see you, I welcome you, I love you, I embrace you, I accept you, in all of your messiness and all of your ugliness and all of your radiance and all of your power. I accept you, and you are a part of me, and I welcome you here. And
Yeah.
it's this reparenting is what it is, right? It's this inner child healing.
Yeah. I love that whole we have that capacity in all of us. And one of the things that really was a turning point for me was when I went through a divorce almost 2 decades ago. And I used to be very like, judgy and like, better than and all the things. And well, I would never self-righteous, like, woo. And I would never do any of that. Well, when at that time when you're broke ass poor and you're brokenhearted and you don't know who you are or what you're gonna do, any number of opportunities line up, and I could see all these different life paths that I could take and the potential for me to be any number of things that I would never have considered before, right? So I was like, oh, we're all just a couple of life experiences, challenging life experiences away from being that person, you know?
Yeah.
So embracing that and is like next level.
Yeah.
I personally think acceptance is the key that unlocks many doors, and I will say that time and again. So, hey, maybe you've never done it. Who knows if you'll ever do it? But that potential is there, and might as well love that person because that's just a fractured part of ourselves that happened when we were little,
Right.
and let's call it in, hug that person, accept them, see what they have to offer.
Yes. That's it. That is it. It's, and we've created this part of us to protect us, to feel
Mm-hmm.
safe, to feel, yeah, honestly, that's mostly it's to protect us or to feel safe. And we've created this defense mechanism to do that. And it, usually comes from a childhood experience. And our inner child is a genius. They're super creative and they're really good. They're really good at creating ways to feel safe. And
Yeah.
unchecked, like it just comes into adulthood and we're just doing it unconsciously still. And that's all it is. right? There's no reason to be ashamed, and there's no reason to be upset with ourselves, because that's really all it is. And when we can see it from that lens, it's so much easier to access our hearts and our compassion, and to embrace that dominatrix punisher, or that
Right.
victim, or that whatever is the part of you that is coming up that's blocking you from that next level of expansion, and bringing them in and loving them and seeing them and holding them, and just saying, like, I see you and I get it, and I thank you for trying to protect me, and thank you for helping keep me safe all these years, and we don't have to do this anymore.
Yeah.
We get to choose a new way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, when you were talking about, the inner dominatrix, that she just wanted to punish the men because she was just resentful. And the book Existential Kink, and it's like that. Yeah, there is a part of us that kind of gets off on this, and it's that's the thing that's hard to admit. Like, wow, I derived a lot of weird kind of pleasure from that just now. Like, what was that from? Where did that come from? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, it's interesting. And that, to me, that experiencing the pleasure in those things, like that to me is where I think, more so than just the person that's having that experience at the time, that's the thing that I think that the shame comes in for me, like, oh wait, I wasn't supposed to feel good at that, I'm supposed to be better than that, or, more aware or whatever. But in the moment, we do somehow get some kind of pleasure or justification or validation or whatever.
Yeah, or just
And it
a
all,
need being met, right? A need being
yeah,
fulfilled.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love the idea of how else can we get that? I think that that's a brilliant way to explore ourselves and meet some of those needs in the sacred rage in a rage room, or, the doing the boxing and all that, like, beat the crap out of something, throw black paint on something. Like, what? How else can you get those feelings that you're obviously wanting to experience, but in a way that's safe and, not even necessarily safe, but in a way that is expansive instead of contractive, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing that has really cracked me open, and some of you have been following my journey, but I started running 3 months
Mhm.
ago, and I've never been a runner my whole life. I've always been active, like I love lifting in the gym and dancing and being active in those kinds of ways, but in my entire life, I've just written off running as not for me. Like, it's hard. My body's just not cut out for it. I'm not a runner. No. And my one of my colleagues, Danny Diaz, who is a performance coach, and he hosts these UPX experiences, these ultimate performance experiences, and he takes you through a 3-month training program where you're running 4 or 5 days a week and lifting in the gym. It's like a 6 days a week training program, and then you end with this like epic 22 mile run through a national park like Zion or Grand Canyon or something like that. And he was telling me about it, and not even trying to enroll me into it. He was just telling me about it and how he was excited and all these things. And I was just like, yeah, I'm not a runner. Like, I could never do that. And he's like, yeah, you could. He's like, you're active, you're fit, you could do it. And I'm like, no, like, I've never been a runner. And he's like, you could do it. And so, like, it was just enough for me to start thinking, like, could I do that? And I had this download dropped in so strong and so clearly, and it was this: if you can go from not being a runner, like, this identity of I'm not a runner,
Mhm.
to doing this and becoming an ultra runner, you can literally shift anything. Like,
Mhm.
if you can shift this concrete identity of I'm not a runner to I'm an ultra athlete, I can shift anything. And it
Mhm.
that knowing was like exciting and terrifying all at the same time, because I knew I had to sign up for this program. And this process of showing up every day for training and challenging this belief that I'm not a runner. I like this is hard, whatever, and like showing up and doing it anyways, day after day after day after day, like was exactly what I needed to shift this and heal my inner masculine. This consistency,
Mm-hmm.
this discipline, all of these things, these limiting patterns, right? Like I want to be consistent, I want to be disciplined, I want to be not just a strong starter but a strong finisher.
Hmm.
And right, like
Yeah.
that has been my edge of expansion for a long time, was like stepping into this healthy masculine. I want to be that person, but I keep getting blocked in these old patterns. And I
Mm.
knew that signing up for this program was going to challenge me and push me, and I was going to have to face all of these limiting patterns and identities in order to get there. And it's exactly what it did.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so incredible because there were so many days of running that truly felt like therapy, like medicine journeys, where I got to be with this little girl version of me that just wanted to feel safe and stable and didn't want to run and didn't want to push and didn't want to move forward. And I got to be with her in this really sacred process of like holding her and witnessing her and just being like, I see you. I see you and I understand and I'm with you and like let's do this. Like let's do this together. And it was just such a powerful process of a healthy way of channeling my energy and my, these shadow parts of me and really
Mm-hmm.
stepping into healing and expanding these edges that I've just kept hitting up against over and over and over again. And so, just to your point, is like when you have that intuitive knowing, even if it feels weird or outside of the box or contrary to what you've believed up until then, right? Like the squats for you, like that was like an
Mm-hmm.
intuitive download for you, like that your
Yeah.
body like needed.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm not saying everyone should go do a running program, but for me, that's what I needed to really to shift and dance with that edge of my expansion in a really healthy and empowering way.
Yeah. That was a beautiful share. Beautiful share. And it really highlights this, we get these nudges all the time. Like, what if we embrace them instead of playing them down? Oh, I can't, or that doesn't make sense, or whatever. Well, what if? What if I did that? What would be on the other edge of that, on the other side? Because I think sometimes we have to explore what's on the other side of that and feel into that, in order for us to be like, oh yeah, that is, speaking of edge of expansion, that's it. It was this most challenging thing that I never thought I would do for you that run. Like, what was on the other side of that? Well, you've healed your inner masculine. Yeah, you're a finisher.
I'm a finisher. I can't deny it now. I have so much
Yeah.
evidence of my consistency and my discipline and my commitment to myself, right? Completely challenging all of my old self-sabotaging, self-abandoning patterns. And it's been
Hmm.
super powerful. And I think that's the other thing is like as we are dancing with our edges of expansion, is acknowledging like there are parts of us that are going to have to die or dissolve or be transmuted into something new, and that
Yeah.
can be really scary because it literally like to our subconscious feels like death,
Yeah.
and that's terrifying, right? Our ego is going to do everything possible to protect us from death or dying, and but this is the process we go through over and over and over again as we step into these new levels and these places of expansion, because there are those parts of us, right? There's that part of me that had to die, that wanted to just be like in my feminine flow all the time, like to
Mhm.
a way like unhealthy degree, and didn't want to take the action and didn't want to be consistent or show up, that was rebelling against structure and authority. And I had to love and embrace and let that part of me die to make way for this healthy divine masculine in me that is consistent and disciplined and also honors my body and also, right, this balance of feminine and masculine. But
Yeah. Yeah.
letting go of that comfort is really scary, because it's like, well, but that's what I've known, and that's my default, and that's what feels good to me, because that's what I experience all the time.
Yeah. There's so much in that I'm like, my brain's just firing off.
Yeah.
First of all, there are so many people out there talking about the masculine feminine dynamic and polarity and yada, yada, yada. And look, it's sacred union within yourself of your masculine and feminine parts, whatever the percentage is that works for you. Um,
Yes.
right. And then to be in polarity, you have a partner that's complementary to that. And sometimes, some days I'm super duper feminine, and some days I'm much more masculine. And guess what? My partner just responds to that, and vice versa. So, yeah. So, polarity can be there whether you're 100% feminine or not. And, I'm grateful for the integration personally, because then I can translate between men and women, especially when we're talking about their relationships.
Yes.
Um, uh, so, yes. And I just want to say that this whole conversation is so rich and ripe. And there's just like so many little nuggets to mine from it. So, and when, not for nothing, like, when we commit to something, when we commit to ourselves through some kind of process, when we set that intention, when we commit and go all in without excuses, and we have some accountability to keep us out of excuses, what a massive, powerful container to have, you
Yeah.
know?
That's it.
Whether it's doing a Pilates challenge online and having your bestie and you text about it and making sure each other did the thing, or anything. And when you use your body in some of that as part of that container, wow. I know another coach said committed to going to the gym every single day, and he will tell anyone that asks that the other things, the other benefits that he got out of it were incredible. Deepening in his relationships, it expanded his income, it's done all these other things because somatics, right? Yeah, we're opening and expanding and breathing life and moving through. And it's kind of the ultimate, really, I think.
Yeah, and how we do one thing is how we do everything. And when we really
Yeah,
show up and commit to better ourselves in one area, right? And when we
yeah.
step into this expansion in one area, it truly does translate to all of the other areas. It's all connected, because how you show up, right, for, training every day or moving your body or some sort of devotional practice or self-care routine that you do every single day, you start to build this muscle of giving yourself love and attention, right? Showing yourself that you matter, that like you're worthy of time and energy and being poured into, and also building that muscle of consistency and that healthy divine masculine, that beautiful structure that holds you. When you really dedicate yourself and show up to a practice that benefits you and helps you expand, it pours over into every area of your life, right? Like after finishing this program for me with the running, I can see so clearly how it's rippling out into how I'm showing up in my business, how I'm serving my clients, just the fact that I take time every day to be present with my body, whether I'm at the gym or I'm running in nature. It's this time where I'm tapped into my higher self. I'm tapped into being present in the moment. And that's where I have all this creativity coming through and
Yeah.
ideas and downloads. And it's like, it truly is this beautiful ripple effect that it just pours into every aspect of your life.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I'm going to listen to that intuitive nudge that I'm having to do some yoga today.
Yes, love
Yeah,
it.
there's something on the other side of that for me. So we're we're dancing on the edge of expansion. Like, first of all, how do we know when we're on the edge of expansion? what are some ways that we can come to that understanding of this is it?
I feel like the first part of that knowing is the desire, right? You have that
Mm,
knowing and that desire that you want something different or something more aligned. And
mhm,
that could even be simplicity, right? Because more simplicity. But there's a desire, and you start to feel that energy or pulling you towards something. And like, right, that could be a more consistent exercise or training program. That could be towards, wanting to have more money in your bank account, more stability, more safety, more abundance, more options, right? It could be that desire for more connection or more fire in your relationship. And so I think first is that noticing the desire, that awareness of like, oh, I want something more. And then it's noticing that tension of like, well, I want that, but right, what's that, the little
mm,
contraction part that comes in of like, well, I really want more clients or more money or a new partner or to exercise more, but and
mm,
what's that negotiation or what's that part that starts to pull you back, and that's where we start dancing with that edge, because it is
mm.
this pull forward, and then also our old patterns that start to pull us back and want to keep us safe in the known.
Yeah. And sometimes that desire is seemingly negative. Like, I'm just sick of having this experience over and over again, you know? So then now what? You know? Yeah, yeah. I may have experienced that a couple times in my life.
Yeah, maybe just a couple times. No, you know
Yeah.
what? I love that you're bringing up, because I think a lot of times that is the catalyst. Is you get to this point of like, I am so fucking tired of this
Hmm.
pattern. I am so tired of feeling strapped or tense or burnt out or,
Hmm.
you know, low energy or whatever it is, and you start to get fed up with your own bullshit. Is really like that. A lot of times that is the catalyst.
I'm glad you said it because I was getting ready to. I am tired of my own bullshit. And that really right there, like it sometimes it that ta it get takes getting to that point for the real switch to be flipped because we have to be done with it. We
Yep.
have to be willing to release it.
Yeah. It's powerful. It's powerful motivation and medicine to be tired of your own bullshit, because then from that place you you find the resources that you need to to start something new, because honestly the starting is the hardest part. Like you don't have momentum towards that new version of you or that new pattern, and
Hmm.
just starting and like building up that initial momentum is honestly the hardest part, because once you get started, momentum starts to carry you, and it's so powerful. But I think that's the power of when we get to that, like, I am so sick of my own bullshit, and that's enough to propel you that first part of the journey of like
Yeah.
getting into like, okay, I'm going to do yoga every day, or I'm going to reach out to more clients every day, or whatever that means for you.
Yeah. So utilizing that as rocket fuel, and then you're building into momentum. And what if something happens to break that momentum? What if, you know,
Well, it will.
going,
It
and it
will.
will, yeah. So then what? You know, I always like to say, you fall off the horse, you get back on it, but sometimes that's easier said than done. So when something comes up in life that breaks that momentum, then what do we do?
Yeah, I think that's where we get to go back to self-compassion first, always, right?
Mm,
Okay,
mhm,
I'm going to forgive myself. I'm not going to shame myself. I'm not going to shit on myself for, falling off or not being perfect. Like, so like
mhm,
self-compassion is the absolute first step. Okay, I forgive myself. I don't This is not about perfection. It's about effort and consistency over time. And then from that place, it's like reconnecting to your why. Like why did I start this in the first place? Why did I start this commitment or this pattern? And does it still feel true? Right? Because
mm,
there's sometimes we fall off because it's no longer actually aligned, and there's a better there's a new better path for us to take. So there's like that check in and that self inventory of like, is this still aligned? Is this still important to me? And if it is important and you fell off, then it's like sometimes it's calling an accountability, right? With your coach or
Hmm.
your friends or whoever to kind of
Yeah.
help give you that kick in the ass of like, hey, you said you wanted to do this. Like, why aren't you? Or what's it going to take for you to get back to it? And really being honest with yourself. Like if you don't have that inner fortitude to kind of kick your own ass and get back into what you said you were going to do, like enrolling the support of somebody else that loves you and wants to see you win to help, get back into that pattern and to keep showing up for yourself.
Yeah. Lovely. Lovely. So find that support after you just accept and love yourself through it. Yeah. And see if it still resonates, if it still tracks with where you're going and who you are, or if it's something to be released. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, this is such a rich conversation, and I know we could
Yeah.
talk about it a lot, a lot.
Yeah.
So, any final thoughts before we put a cap on
Yeah, I
our
think
container?
this feels like a really beautiful resting place. I think we did it.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
Savannah, share with folks how they can find you.
Thank you. So the easiest way is embraceyourwild.com/links, links. That has all of the ways that you can connect with me on Instagram, my medicine ceremony music on Spotify,
Hmm.
sign up for my email list, upcoming retreats. Like it has everything. So embraceyourwild.com/links. And that's the best way to connect with me. So I'd love to, if you're on Instagram, connect with me on Instagram, send me a message. I love being in conversation and connecting with other beautiful leaders that are doing this work. We have some really beautiful retreats coming up. We have one in Costa Rica called Embodied Goddess, in the
Hmm.
11th to the 16th. We still have a few spots for that. And I'm enrolling a small handful of women into my year-long leadership program that starts in mid-November, going through the end of next year, called
Okay.
Infinite Leadership. And it's really this bringing this blending of this feminine healing and the emotional mastery, and then this the UPX running training program, and like bringing that all together to birth your aligned, beautiful offer into the world with in-person retreats, plant medicine support. It's really, I'm really excited about it. So, yeah, I would love to connect with you and just, yeah, thank you, Michelle, for this opportunity to be in conversation and to serve. And
Oh,
yeah, it's been
absolutely.
beautiful.
Thank you for being here. And
Yeah.
Spotify playlists are one of my love languages. That's
Same. Same.
so I'll definitely be checking out your Spotify channel. Um, Thank you so much for being here and sharing your open heart and this compassion for oneself and each other and all the little aspects of self.
Yeah.
And I look forward to chatting with you more in the future.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much, Michelle.